All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a couple more people popped in, which is great. So thank you all for coming to the App 47 webinar. We're going to probably take 45 minutes total. We're going to start off with a PowerPoint and a little bit of background about what you're going to see, and then I'm going to turn this over to Chris Schroeder, who's going to do a demo of the product on the key features. What we're finding and the message we want to get across, especially with our new release of our Enterprise App Store, is that the line between MDM solutions and MAM solutions is getting thinner and thinner, and that MAM is becoming a technology that can replace or enhance or expand the capabilities of protecting mobile apps to a much larger audience without sort of the overhead and costs of what MDM brings to the table. So we're going to talk about mobile app management. We're then going to go through our authentication updates, our new immersive app store experience. We've got a new cloud-based app signing, and then of course our advanced app level security, which brings the security features that we have at the app store level down into the app itself, and we're going to demonstrate that. So just real quick, for those of you who don't know, App 47, we are in the mobile app management space. The graphic on the right shows you the three main categories of functionality we bring through our app store, which allows you to deploy apps such as provisioning, configuration, authenticating people to access those apps, deploying updates and new versions of those apps, and of course the fully customizable app store for your users to access those apps. We can also allow you to manage those apps. So when they're out on the devices, you can take a look at configurations, security of those apps, look for app trouble, manage the performance of those apps and the quality of the experience. And then of course, we've got a full analytics engine, which allows you to look at crash logs, trends. We have a bunch of customers that actually sell apps through their app store, so we can look at revenue and usage and the like. So a lot of times what's driving people to a MAM is they need, yes.
Yeah, I'm only seeing the App 47 screen, not the next slide.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much. How's that?
Yeah, much better.
There we go. This is the first slide. So, so we'll get caught up. So there's the little image on the right. And then I was just going through, the reason people really move to a MAM solution is they've been introduced to maybe a BYOD plan where their employees are bringing their own devices, or you're reaching out to constituents where you're not really controlling those devices, or even the MDM is meeting some resistance from the population that people don't want their devices to be controlled by the company. But we still need to have the security enforced at the app level, as well as access to the apps, but also we need to control app distribution. We need to understand how the apps are performing in the wild, and really to get a complete visibility into the whole life cycle. So mobile app management is really the software version of MDM, where we're not really controlling the device, though. We're focusing on controlling and securing the distribution and access to the apps. All right, so as I said before, the line between MAM and MDM is getting smaller, but the increase in cost differences and the reduction in operational technical overhead can no longer be ignored. We think we offer a very robust system for you. So in brief, our solution will help you with both user and group management, actual app management and the metadata that goes around those apps, analytics, crash logs, audit logs, all the notifications either through SMTP and SMS. We support business integrations with the Apple VPP, Volume Purchase Program, and the B2B program. On the development side, as you're developing and deploying your apps, we'll help you with the build management. We can integrate with multiple SSO authentication providers, which we'll see today on the demo. And then, of course, a plethora of security policies that control not only access to the App Store, access to specific apps, but then securing the actual app when it's running on the device, and then getting rid of the ability for the app to run, or data wiping when the user is no longer authorized or that device is no longer authorized. So at 47, we are in the mobile app management space. Gartner has placed us as a leader in our flexibility and willingness to work with enterprises and their unique business requirements. So while we have an off-the-shelf COTS product that runs in the cloud, the integration points of our solution to either provisioning, authentication, reporting, or build life cycles allows us to be very flexible in creating tight integrations to business processes, and we welcome those challenges. For example, we worked with a large healthcare organization that needed integration with their highly secured device provisioning system. So they're actually deploying mobile devices to run their medical equipment. The provisioning system is run within their systems that actually communicated with the App Store to authenticate the devices and the healthcare providers to access the information in that device. So that was something we were able to integrate with. We've recently worked with a large tech company that needed a unique authentication through an API layer. It was actually multiple API calls that verified the user through their credentials and then requested the user information so that we could populate their App Store with their name and business unit and things like that. So that integration was something that we did with them. And then we worked with a large telecom provider that needed a customized UI to fit the user expectations. So they wanted to onboard, a couple 10,000 users. They were used to a certain experience, so we built some flexibility into the UI so that it could be customized to fit their needs. Those kind of things are something unique to App 47 and working with our customers, and something we do every day. Our support is following our global customer base. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. We've got a support portal that you can access, so you can send an email to support at 47. We've got an 800 number, and of course we publish the status of our services as well. All of our support SLAs are on our website. We're open about all of these, and we think we do a good job at it. So some things we're going to see today, we're going to try to give a higher level overview of what we do from an app store, but then we're going to focus on a couple key features that we've enhanced over this past 6 months. And one of them is support for multiple authentication schemes. So when a user authenticates into the App Store to either onboard a device or even just to get access to apps, typically users are associated with groups, and each group can actually be communicating with a different authentication server. So we can see here on our right the SSO servers that are integrated in this portal. We see an AD server, we see a Google OAuth, an LDAP, an Office 365 server, and then a custom REST API server there. And then on the left, we can see a group of users, right, where they've got self-registration enabled. And then when they register their device by clicking on this link, they will be authenticating against this SSO server, which was configured over here. So we'll see that sort of in action. So each group can use a different authentication scheme, and then users can belong to multiple groups. It gets kind of confusing there, but it is something that we often run into. All right, the other thing we're going to take a look at is our new cloud signing. So we don't do any containerization or app wrapping to do our security. I know that's gotten sort of a bad rap from other security providers, but we don't do anything like that. So with our SDK, which you can include in your apps at build time, or you can simply upload to our cloud service, and we'll unwrap, we'll pull it apart, put in our SDK, and re-sign it with your certificate, will allow you to do a lot of the advanced policy enforcements, upgrade enforcements, data gathering, and the security features that you need. And you can see here on the right, you can, we'll go through this process of re-app signing right through our sort of one-step process over here. So you will need the SDK if you're doing the advanced analytics, gathering your crash logs, enforcing the security policies, doing data wiping on that app, and then of course the advanced app level security. We do store your cert and password, but we secure it in the AWS Secrets Manager, so it is inaccessible and never really stored at rest anywhere that people can get to. So if you don't know what AWS Secrets Manager is, it's built specifically for this, used by the DoD standards and things like that. So all good. So we're going to then jump into the level 3 advanced app security. This is very unique to us. We're the only man vendor that has integrated app level security from a single vendor. And what we're doing here is proactively protecting your apps from advanced and persistent mobile threats. So unlike, let's say, the OAuth, which secures the App Store and access to apps, this is when your apps are actually running on the device. So this will integrate into the enterprise app store. It is a single license with App 47, so it doesn't require any separate licenses or contract with third-party vendors. You can choose to apply the advanced mobile app security to selected apps that need that protection. So if you have 30 apps in your app store, maybe only 2 need this advanced protection. And the security features are applied without an MDM profile. Again, we've said that many times, but we just want to make sure that sinks in so that your employees' data remains their data. We're not doing anything there. The advanced app security provides all of these security features. We can detect rooting and jailbreaking, repackaging, hook framework detection and prevention, untrusted screen reader detection and prevention, untrusted keyboard detection. We can prevent the users from doing screenshots and screen captures. We can enable PIN codes so that when the user launches the app, they have to put in their own self-managed PIN. We can also detect external screen projection and prevent those things, runtime integrity check information, debugger detection and prevention, emulator detection and prevention, native code hook detection and prevention, and runtime library injection detection prevention. So pretty much everything you're going to need to protect your app from persistent threats. So we did mention it's all built into the App 47 App Store, and we call it Level 3 Analytics because it's our Level 3 subscription. So we have 3 levels. And at a high level, the level 1, which is our base app store, gives you the customizable app store. It gives you the user and group management with SSO. It allows you to sign and re-sign your application, your mobile apps in the cloud. It does provide geofencing and data wiping security, version policies, and simple download data analytics. All of level 1 is included in level 2, but with this you get your advanced data analytics, which is a whole series of performance, usage, timed events, and things like that. And then with level 3, you get everything in level 1 and level 2, plus the advanced app level security, which we just talked about, and the like. So it couldn't be easier to get started with App 47, and you can do sort of a crawl, walk, run, depending on what your needs are. So with that, we're going to jump over to Chris, who's going to show you the App 47 portal that is used to manage your app store. And then we're going to run some emulators so you can see what the user experience is in accessing the apps and things like that.
All right, great. Thanks, Rob. You want to change presenters to me?
I'm going to do that right now. Here we go. Sweet.
Just making sure I'm picking the right screen here.
All right.
All right. So real quick, Rob, does the size of the screen look okay?
Yes, it does.
Okay, awesome. All right. So Rob, thanks for that great setup. And as Rob mentioned, my name is Chris Schroeder, CEO, co-founder of App 47. And we're going to go through a couple of things today, starting with SSO. So one of the key things that we want to, or the reason that we're really starting here is this is a very common way and becomes more and more common each day with our customers on a mechanism to onboard their users, their employees, and do it in a federated single point of sign-on way. And so, as you can see here, we support a number of SSO mechanisms, from connecting directly to your AD server as well as using RESTful APIs, as well as using standard protocols like SAML v2 and OAuth. If you have a one that's different than this, or have a slight variation, because for example, SAML, there's a couple different ways to implement it. That's not a big deal for us. We can certainly accommodate that and have done that for our customers in the past. So, but once you define one of these, so each one of these, you can have as many of these as you need, depending on how many types of services that you have. You're able to then take that SSO endpoint and associate it with a group. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this test group, and we're going to associate that Google OAuth SSO endpoint with this. And so what does that mean? So what that means is you can easily hand out this link. You can get a short link to it as well and make that easier for people to cart around. But when they go to that link, they will automatically go to your SSO endpoint, be authenticated, and then return back to our servers to complete the onboarding of their device. And when they do that, because they're associated with a group, we can also automatically give them access to the applications that are defined in this group. So for this example, they would automatically see Evernote, Monitor, which is an HTML5 application, and GoToMeeting immediately in there. There's some other ways that they can get access to applications, but the basic principle is you would use this group to have people easily on board without having to initially invite them, and that is yet another way that we can onboard users, is simply adding them, but adding 50 or 50,000, 20,000 users this way be a little arduous, and I certainly wouldn't want to do it that way. And just lastly, just kind of to wrap this up, allows you to your users to self-service and acquire the App Store when they need it, as opposed to reacting to an email that's sent out and requires some action within 24 or 48 hours, depending on what you set in the system, to do that. So that's how SSO and groups work together to facilitate that onboarding process. Now, once they're onboarded, the experience obviously is very critical, and we spent a fair amount of time on what we call Enterprise App Store version 3. So this is the UI for that, and you can come in here and configure how this looks and feels for your end users. If you want a different color for the header, let's see if I can remember how to do this the right way the first time. I never remember the first time. We're going to try to say red. Oh, I always do that wrong. I'll do red there. Okay. So we can start branding this UI, and we continue on down and customize this. We can customize the fonts, the colors, the spacing, the size of things to match your design guide for your corporation. So I'm going to back that out. But hopefully you get that idea that the style of it is easily customizable, and you can fit that into your style guide. So that's how you define that, as well as being able to change the branding assets of the logo that appears in the upper right. It's the same logo that will appear as the icon of the App Store on the device, and as well as being able to change the splash screen that appears. So all that is, again, customizable for that. So let's real quick take a look at what that ends up looking like for the end user. So if I go into my user here, and I'm going to launch the V3 emulator. So I'm just looking at it in an emulator mode. This isn't on an actual device, but as an administrator, I can always come in here and sort of see what the end user is seeing. For example, if they're calling up and saying, I'm not seeing the Kayak app on my phone, nor in the App Store, you can come in here, look at that user, look at the user's device, and do the same exercise. So it's a way that you, as an administrator, can help a user without having to have access to the device, because that's not always feasible. So we take a look at the homepage for the App Store. The first thing is there's a couple different categories here, or groupings, I should say. So the first is getting started. So you can take a set of applications and say, these are applications everybody should have. And so as they install those applications, they'll be removed from getting started. And then when there's no more apps in the getting started category on this for this device, then this group goes away. Similar to that, you can also mark an app as featured. So these are apps that maybe are new, maybe are key apps, maybe you always want them up front, but those are featured apps that you want to highlight sort of above all the other applications. We also have a group for most downloaded, as well as highest rated within the App Store, and that's your App Store as opposed to the public App Store, but it's based off the ratings that you received in your App Store. And then most frequently used, obviously these are applications that have our agent installed in them, either when including the SDK at build time or using the SDK injection that we'll talk about here in a minute. So that's the home page. So a lot of ways to find information. Each one of these will show up to 12 applications. If there's more applications, they'll scroll right to do that. And then always you can click on the view all to see all of those. So I went ahead and clicked on that. Now we're on the featured apps. And so you'll see all of the featured apps listed here. If there's more that appears on a screen, it will simply just scroll down and allow the user to find more information about that. So that's the featured. You can also simply query for the application by name. So that's available in the featured app as well. Apps is all of your apps. So forget categories, forget featured, forget how often it's downloaded or used. These are simply all your applications listed alphabetically. And again, you can search by name to find that specific application. Categories. Now, on the home page, there was different groupings, and I know I may have misspoke for a second and said there were categories on the home page. It really meant to say groups, because you have within your App Store for each application can belong to one or many categories. So these categories are things that you would normally find in an App Store. These are calendar apps and finance apps and news apps and productivity apps and things like that. So you can group them by those categories. You have total control over that. That's not being pulled from the public App Store. These are how you want to define the categorizations of these applications, and you can search on that. You can also obviously drill into that and see all of the apps within that particular category or switch between the categories. So again, another great way to discover applications and find that application that you want. And then the last one is updates. So this tab will only appear when there are updates for the device that you're on. So if there's no updates available, then obviously this tab disappears and isn't shown. And that goes the same for featured and categories. If there are no featured apps, or if there's no apps that are defined into a category, then those tabs won't show. And so we really try to make it a really responsive UI and ensure that the customer will always see something if there was a link or a tab there for that. So that's kind of a quick overview of the UI from the top level. Some other key bits of information around that UI is there's another way that you can get to all these views of home and featured, all apps, but you can also select your own profile. This is where you can define what time zone you're in. So when you're viewing dates like when was this app last updated, or when was a review presented, we'll look at that in a second. All that will be in your time zone, not a central time zone or our server time zone. So you can customize that to the user's local time zone. You can also update if the user is a local user, and I know we didn't cover that, but that means that they've set a password in order to gain access. You'll be able to set that password here. If you have PIN code configured for the App Store, then they can also set the PIN code here as well as update their PIN code. So this is all about self-service and not requiring your end users to have to call your administrators to change their password or change their PIN code, update their email address, and things of that nature, or change their time zone. So it's all about self-service. And then continuing that last thread down self-service is any user will have a set of devices. Just like you would on a Google or an Apple account, you have a set of devices that you've authorized and that are associated with you. So you can come in here, see what all is listed, as well as be able to unregister or potentially delete those devices if you are no longer using them. And so again, a user can self-service and manage that. They've lost this particular device, this iPhone X, and they no longer are using it, and that's the last time that they've accessed it, and they can delete it and not have to call your admin to let them know that device is no longer in their presence or something like that. Or maybe they've simply handed it down to their child, and they don't want the child having all those business applications. So again, that's all around self-service. So if we split back to the home page, and let's drill into an application. So now that you've found the application you want, so you can see all the information that we're pulling. In this example, this is a public app, so we're pulling the information from the public app store. We've pulled the screenshots. In a private application, you can define all those screenshots yourselves, as well as videos. It can be hosted here. If you want a video of how to use the application, that can be all embedded in here and viewable within your app store. Reviews are a lot more sophisticated than the version 2 of our app store. So not only can the user understand what the overall review level is, what the platform, meaning what do iOS users versus Android users think of this application, looking at it from a version perspective as well, but they can also see all the detailed reviews as well as give a new review. So leaving a review as simple as writing a comment, giving a star rating, and hitting submit. And then the administrator can manage all of those reviews. I'll show you that here in a second. So that's the new Enterprise App Store. Very customizable, a much cleaner look and feel, and we believe an easier way to navigate and discover those applications, and not only discover them, but once you've found them, to easily install them into or onto their device. So real quick, before we go to signing, I did want to cover reviews. So if we go into one of your applications and people have left reviews, we can see what the overall review is, as well as by OS or by OS and by version. And then you can see specific reviews. So this is a review that was left by a user. And you can either delete that review or hide that review. Again, it's your app store as an administrator. And if you hide it, then basically the review stands, the rating stands, but the actual text will not be present to your app store users. Maybe they said something derogatory, maybe you don't agree with what's said. I don't know. Again, it's your app store. You decide what you want to see and show in there or what you don't. So an administrator of that application would have access to that. So that wraps up the App Store UI in version 3. And so what we're going to transition to is we're going to go over to security. Actually, I'm sorry, signing. So as Rob mentioned, we have introduced a new way that we can inject the SDK as well as re-sign that application, all done in the cloud, all done in a super easy way, configurable way. So where it all starts is in the signing tab, is for both iOS and Android. You can come in here and upload your, for iOS, we need the certificate and the provisioning profile. And then for that certificate, we need the password for that. Likewise for Android, we need the key store file, the password for the key store file, the name of the key, and then the password for the key, the key. Again, as Rob said, we're storing all this information in AWS secrets. increasing that security. And we've gone to fairly great length to ensure that that information, in particular, the passwords, is never written to disk, is never written to a log file. We have special scrubbers that are looking for those keywords, and it's never persisted into the database, put into a backup. And so the only time that we have access to this is obviously when we're processing a build in memory and doing the actual signing. And then once that's done, it is obviously removed from memory and never persisted to disk or to into a database. So so that's how you would set up the signing. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can use this. If I go to add a build, let me grab a build real quick. I'm going to drop a build on here. Oops. So as soon as I do that, I have an option here now to perform this action. Now I can simply resign the app, or I can inject the embedded agent, or I can use the advanced level 3 mobile app security. So let's walk through these real quick. So resigning the app just means that we're going to take what you've uploaded and re-sign it with the information that you previously gave to us in the signing tab. And why would you do that? Real easy, real simple reason that you would do it is that your application is going through a development process, and then maybe through a CI server, and then you want to come and upload it. And what we've seen with our customers is it means that the information in that public key, that private key, and in that profile then needs to be shared not only with the CI server, but all the developers that might produce a build that will be your production build and will go out to your end users. By uploading it to App47, which is your storefront to your enterprise users, you don't have to hand that key out anymore. So they can use their ad hoc builds, their ad hoc signatures. They can use their own free developer account. They can do all of that and hand you the same APK or IPA file that they would produce to do local testing. We can then take that, we can then take that and simply re-sign it. And that's a great way to help localize the exposure of that private information. So hopefully that makes sense. So the next thing you might do is you might want to just inject our agent. So what does that get you? It'll get you a couple of the level 2 security policies. It'll get you crash logs. It'll get you data usage, and a couple of other things. So so that is a way that you can include our embedded agent into your application without having to ask the developer to do anything, or add a line of code, or include a library. So we can take care of all that when we're re-signing that application. And then the last option is we can also add the level 3 advanced mobile app security, and that allows us to do all those great policies that Rob was mentioning on how to do that. So that's where all this takes place, is when you upload the build. When you upload the build, you can make that selection. If you're using our APIs, for example, going back to the CI server, continuous integration server, and you're using our APIs, once a build has passed all of the tests, you can actually pass that same information in and have the same actions taken. So this is our UI side of it, but all these actions are available in our API as well. All right. So with all of that, let's get to the exciting part of the security. So the first two tabs that we have here, version management, authorized user, if you have our agent included in it, again, at build time or by what we just did with the SDK injection, these two policies are available. So you can select what version is the user have to be running in order for them to continue. So you can select that a couple different ways. You can say it can be that version or higher, meaning whatever the active version is. Maybe it has to be exactly that version. You don't want anybody operating other than 1.4.1. But we also allow you to customize that. You can say that I want 1.3 or higher is fine, and that's up to you on how you want to do that. Different platforms work a little bit differently, so we've allowed you to define that. So what happens to the user when the policy isn't met? So let's say you've set active version only. They have version 1.3. They will be presented with a message that you can customize to say a new version is available and you need to upgrade. You can configure how many times they're allowed to ignore that. So if you set the allowed ignores to 3, they can ignore it 3 times, and then after that, they're not given an option. So the only option that they have after they've ignored it 3 times is to upgrade. They can't dismiss the dialogue. They can't get around it or circumvent the check. So that's how version management works. Now, the other key thing about this is they don't have to return to the App Store to install it. All the install process happens from within the application. So as soon as they click OK, the install process will start. The app will be updated, and they'll be able to continue on their way with the latest application. So super easy to use, very customizable, and what the user sees, as well as the end user experience that they have. Excuse me. So authorized user. This allows us to define a triangle. If you can kind of picture, an app, in this case, it's agent, a user in the store, maybe it was what we looked at earlier, chris@app47.com, and a device. And those 3 things have to be approved as well as associated, meaning that the user has access to that application on that device. If that's no longer true, maybe the device has been deauthorized or deleted, maybe the user has been removed or is no longer approved, then you can restrict access. And what that simply means is they will be presented with this message and the application will quit. It won't do anything more. It won't let them, again, much like a version management when they exceed the ignores. They can't get around it. They can't find a different way to go about it. You can also elect for the data to be wiped. And so what we mean by that is we're not removing the application. That's the difference between us and an MDM. Just kind of be upfront about that. But what we are doing is any data that the application could possibly write to, any area that it could possibly write to, we scrub it, remove any files, remove any directories, and ensure that that application looks like it had just installed. And so any enterprise data that had been downloaded that was cached or stored to persist over time will be removed from that device and no longer accessible on that. So that's the authorized user policy. The PIN code is a new policy that we have that allows you to define a set of applications that require PIN code access. So obviously a device can have a PIN code, typically enforced by an MDM, but a way that we can achieve a similar security posture is to ensure that any application that you set this on, the end user will have a single PIN code for all of your applications that they have to provide on a periodic basis. So what we did is we try to, like we do with other things, make this super customizable so you can define what's shown for the PIN code dialog. What do they see if the PIN code's not set, or we don't know who the user is because they're running on a device that's not approved, as an example, as well as what happens when the PIN code is locked. What message do they see? So you can customize all of this. If you don't like our wording and you think there's a better way to say it, you can do that. You can configure how many times, after how many successive failures does the PIN code lock, as well as how often do they have to provide that PIN code. So what's that session effectively for that PIN code? It is the same PIN code for all of their applications, so they don't have to remember one for each one. And if you remember back to the App Store, the user can come in and manage their own PIN code. They can change it. They can initially set it all through the App Store. and define again that self-service capability for the end user to do that. So PIN code allows you to have that additional layer of security, knowing that not only do they have access to physical access to the device and they have access to the application, but it really is that end user because they're providing their unique PIN code. Not simply just having access to the device is good enough to launch it, launch your enterprise application. And then last tab on here allows you to define those level 3 advanced mobile app security policies. So both on iOS and Android, you can select which policies you want on each platform. And whatever you're most intrigued about or concerned about, you define those. And then when you upload that build and say that you want level 3 advanced mobile app security policies applied, those policies get applied. Again, all done in the cloud, all super easy to do. We re-sign the application and then make it available for your users to download it and utilize. And so that's those levels of F47 security policies that we have today. We have some more exciting ones coming up in the very near future that we'll have some future webinars on, and we look forward to presenting that in a very short amount of time. So with that, Rob, back over to you. I don't know if we got some questions from the.
Yeah, let's see what we got. So yes, pricing question. So our everything is a subscription based, and the level 1, 2, and 3 are different subscription levels. Our first tier is, I believe, up to 10,000 users, and then we have a 10,000 to 40 or 50,000, and then over. So really, just 3 levels of subscriptions. The level 3 analytics, or the level 3 security, is priced at the app level. So the initial subscription amount gives you 3 applications, and then you can add more apps as needed if you want to do more than 3 apps within your app store. Let's take a look. Yes, PIN code is part of the level 3 security. So we do have pricing that we can share with you if you want to email us on what the price is for each of the levels. So we try to be as transparent as we can with that. It does take about 2 weeks to go live, so this is not a very big process. The training is, we have an onboarding team that helps you understand how to configure the app store to fit your needs. And then we do have a services group that works on any customization of the integrations that we talked with earlier, and the like. So oh, hold on, here's one I might have missed. I'm gonna make this window bigger. Can I see that? Anurag, we'll get back to you on the demo for the security policies. We tried it, but we'll go through that as well. So yeah, I think that's all the questions that I see on here. Let me go back and just give us your contact information. Oh boy, I'll make this easy. Here we go. I'm going to make myself the presenter. I'm going to show the screen. And so my email is rob@app47.com. You can find us on Twitter, and of course, to contact us through our website at app47.com. We do have free trials that we can set you up with so that you can test out the features and see if it works for your use case. So with that, thank you, Chris. Thank you all for coming, and there will be an email of a recording of this coming out as well, usually a day after the webinar is done, to share with your colleagues. So thank you all, and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.